Welcome to Beyond the Deck, a production Gore column in which we go through a company's PowerPoint presentation to help shareholders get an overall story of what's happened with the company. With us today, you can see him on the screen, Bernard Tourillon, CEO of HPQ Silicon Resources, trades in Canada under HPQ, and for our friends in the US under HPQFF. For those new to the story, very quick but very powerful summary. The company is a Canadian producer that's building a portfolio of unique, high-value, specialty silicon products needed for the coming renewable energy revolution. More than just lip service, they received their first order for spherical nanosilicon material from a major automobile manufacturer. They signed an NDA and received a request for 4 N silicon material samples from a world-leading high-performance materials company, and they've got an NDA with at least 2 battery players, if not more, and the timing couldn't be more perfect because the silicon market is in a supply deficit. Prices are soaring, and the company is about to come online in 2022. Bernard, welcome, my friend. Good to see you.
Good to see you.
All right, let's go through this deck. But before we do, I want to ask you, with the QRR so close, why the new deck? Who is this for?
Well, actually, it's, I always plan to be more active and, even more active on marketing the story as the QRR came into play. So it was there. And I think there was a need for people. I think I felt a need to explain to my investors, okay, this is where you are. This is what HPQ is, because I guess for a lot of new investors, like HPQ seems to be like many things that doesn't, if you look quickly and you just like act superficially, you'll get a feeling that we don't know where we're going, and we have many things going. Well, the reality is we know exactly where we're going, where we're moving, where we are. And so I sort of wanted a deck that basically reflect that. And it's a very succinct deck that's designed for institutional investors and more people I'm going to be starting to talk to.
And do you have some institutional, like do you have?
Yes, yes, end of March, 31st of March. I'll issue a press release pretty soon. There's a conference organized where Quebec-based, basically battery material companies and battery technology companies, which where we fit in, will be presenting to U.S. investors. And I'm one of the, I think, 15 or 20 companies that were invited to go there.
All right, that's great. Let's get to the deck. And by the way, we've seen multiple iterations of your decks over the years, and this is by far the best one. I love it. So why don't you take it out for a spin?
Yeah, no, that's actually very, very good for me because, as I start to do it, I have to go out and spin. That's how you know the deck works when you try it out. So it's basically, here we go, we're spinning it. I think the introduction explains in which space we are. We're in the clean energy transition. We're a company that's developing technology for the clean energy transition, and our focus is more on silicon. One of the reasons why we're doing this is basically net zero investment. And that was prior to whatever happened in Ukraine, the entire insanity. Net zero investment, we're going to reach $6 trillion a year. So there's going to be massive investment. The reason why there is massive investment is there's going to be massive demand, and there's no capacity right now to make the material. So what we do is we're developing new processes, more than one, to make the critical element necessary to reach net zero, more specifically related to silicon and silica. But that's really what the company's philosophy is. We're really ready to become the lowest cost producer of silicon nanomaterials, because silicon nanomaterials are in demand. Demand is going to be expanding. There's not really that much basically capacity is going to be able to meet the demand as we move forward. I'll explain that further in the presentation, but that's really what it is. So a spherical silicon nanopowders and nanowire is going to be for the batteries. Like from the get-go, our material is generating multiple NDAs. And what's sort of funny, I think it just last week, we signed one and we started discussion on 2 others. So
and that's what's so critical, because there are a lot of guys pretending to be in the silicon space. But you guys are just talking the talk.
Yeah, but what's something that's very interesting is that there's a lot of people in the silicon anode space. Okay, and that's literally very easy for do. They can start to buying the material on Alibaba, and they get enough to start doing the material. No, but that's literally what it is. I was having a discussion with one guy last week. But at one point, yeah, oh, wait a minute, I need to get a regular, consistent supply. Alibaba, you supply one day because the supply they're looking for is 3 to 4 end material for battery space, and it doesn't come. It's either offshoot of the solar industries and those situations. So at one point, as you go toward commercialization of the processes, I'm talking the battery processes, you need a feedstock that's going to be steady, stable, and coming in. You can't change, everywhere. That's where we fit in. So, and that's why we're getting advanced approach right now, even before we finalize all the R&D, because people are realizing that we're working on addressing those subjects. So that brought us the first orders, basically from a car manufacturer, as we were on spec. And what's really interesting is we're really discovering that there is a niche up to 4N material, really a niche market that's going to be very, very interesting. We mentioned silicon nitride, but there's other products in the battery space and outside of the battery space, which is going to be coming. So this is really what we're coming into, and we're supported by, world-class technology partner. Our business philosophies, for those that don't know us, okay, because there's some of us that do know us, is that HPQ from the start chose not to build a big internal R&D team with a lot of white coats people coming around. What we decided to do is outsource our R&D with a world-class technology partner, which is PyroGenesis. So the deal is finance 100% of the R&D for 90% of the revenue stream, but we think we're a much bigger winner because PyroGenesis have a world-class knowledge. They don't waste that world-class knowledge on any type of crazy project. They have to be able to see the project to go from basically beginning all the way to commercialization. And that's where project get killed, because when you start at lab scale, it's easy to do. Once you start moving to small pilot plant, they're relatively easy to do. Once you start moving to commercial size pilot plant and commercial equipment, that's the difficult part. The advantage of working with Pyro is we can start from the beginning all the way to the end, to the commercial stage, and we will both be, reaching the value of this. So that was a philosophical choice from the beginning, and I think it's the right one, because a lot of small technology companies, their shareholders end up having to pay for your R&D lessons. So now this way, we're able to have a much more profound R&D team that we could never afford as we were starting this project.
And I assume also, Bernard, when you're talking to big potential customers or partners, or the case may be, them seeing PyroGenesis as a technology partner just adds that much more validation and that much more comfort and confidence to the other side.
It does, but at the end, it's a product you do. Where it becomes more important is they start to realize that, okay, there is some scientific background, and we know what we're talking about. So now that we've done this, we can go to this typical disclaimer, blah, blah, blah. Pretty soon, this is going to go away where I start talking about, my resource, the fact that we're not going to mine anything, just newsflash. So the change of business is advancing well, that document is advancing well. So why invest in HPQ? Well, we're basically developing new technologies and product for a greener future. Hey, good place to be. We have silicone initiative. So we're developing a strategic silicone solution with proprietary low-cost transformation process. What's interesting is I'm now getting calls from people who says, oh, we have quartz deposit. And, then I basically tell them, we've done it for our own internal need. Oh, well, I can call PyroGenesis and, they're going to sell me the technology. It says, no, we own the technology. If it's related to the space of silicone. So that technology was developed for us, for our internal needs, and it'll grow internally through our processes. So you can't use our technology without going through us. So what we're looking for is transforming silica, which is an abundant material but very cheap, into multiple high-value materials, for batteries, for silicon nitrates, and more. So as I say, technology is there. We also have a Fume silica initiative, which is another project. It's another proprietary low-cost green transformation for another material has a big market. So that's really what we look for. We look for sort of like game-changing technology, or basically bringing a paradigm shift in how the materials are made, bringing forward. This is another technology where I got a lot of interest from people, from big players in the industry that are curious about what we're doing. And what's interestingly is we leave ourselves open. We're actually, we're not like closed-minded. So basically, we think our technologies can support other verticalities, such as green hydrogen processing. We have measured an achievable 3 years growth plan. We've now reached that plan where we can start to have really serious growth plan toward how we're going to commercialize the technology. When you start from an R&D idea in the beginning to bring it to where we are now, we're at a place where we can start to foresee commercialization. That's really where the fun part is, the value.
That's great news.
Yeah, in a certain way, if you look at it, because I come out of the mining business or custom non-revenue businesses and how it works, the value for shareholders is the upswing of value to shareholders is always when you develop the deposit. Okay, same thing for us when you develop the technology. Once you start, basically commercializing it, it sort of becomes plug it into an Excel spreadsheet, and then you figure out what should be the value of the company. At this moment, the potential of the values of the company is the blue sky of all the technologies. So what we're trying to do at HPQ is have more than one of those verticalities in line, because they're never going to be all at the same time. So our most advanced one's a QRR, then is our nano reactor, then is our fume silica and a nano reactor in terms of technology. And then there's a hydrogen side also coming along. So that's really what it is. You have an experienced team, management and board. We're supported by the technology partner Pyrogenesis, as I've explained it clearly. Plus, we also have strong institutional support. We have the Quebec government in EQ as a large shareholder, below 10%, but still, it's an interesting partnership to have.
And we don't talk. We've talked about that in the past, but we really haven't emphasized how important that is to HPQ's stability and growth going forward, and the foundation for growth going forward.
Well, it's a question of mix and match. In a certain way, Quebec, and I think Canada also, wants to become a center pool for the battery technology and those material. And HPQ, with its silicone initiative, I think is very well positioned in that area. And eventually, if we do develop an interesting hydrogen technology, we're also very, very well positioned for that. So let's just go back now and get an idea what the silicone market is. Okay, I talked about the battery and everything else, but that's not the only market there is. There's much more to this. And so this is a serious business, serious big, that is, I think, just on that size of the market would be an extremely game-changing, HPQ would be extremely exciting as a game-changing technology. So for people that don't know, silicone or silicone metal, depending how you call it, is a semiconductor material. It's the second most abundant element in the Earth's crust, okay? But like all other energy metals, lithium, graphite, it does not exist in its pure state. So you need to transform it. You need to extract it from the raw material. The EU, and I just saw somewhere that Australia also declared silicone a critical raw material. It has a wide range of modern application. Silicone is one of those materials that everybody uses in their daily life that doesn't know it. Without it, a lot of our technologies would not work without it. But it's not known because I always call it a sandwich material. You need it to make other things great. So because it's a sandwich material, the ESG manufacturing, is going to become more and more important, especially now in this crazy new world that we're in. Prior to what happened in Ukraine, it was you wanted to have traceability in your material just for the green concept. Now you want to make sure that you will also want traceability in your material with regard to where it's made for a lot of other reasons. So the ESG is going to become crucial. Interestingly, to extract it commercially from quartz, the SI, it's an expensive carbothermic process that was first invented in 1899. It's still used. So the general concept is still the same. They tweak everything else, but big multinational companies, when they have a system that works, it will take a massive change to get them to rethink what they're doing. They will tweak with their system, but they won't change it because they know how it works and everything else. But
we used an example one time, Bernard, where you guys are almost Appleizing, for lack of a better term, this market, where before Apple came along, we all just had these big gray boxes underneath our desks or on top of our desks, and that was
it's actually. If we go back to that thing, it goes back to the time when the mainframe, the big VAX computer, shows our age when we went to the university, and we had to use one of those big computer thing system. And now on our phone, we have that capacity. So this is the type of change we're bringing about to manufacturing. And so So that's really what's exciting. And the key point, the key point for people to understand is, even though the first process has been invented, depending on the final application, either solar, electronics, batteries, you need chemical grade. 99.5 must either be purified or used. And that'll become more clear as we move forward. So we find ourselves in a situation where silicone demand is going to reach about 3.8 million tons. That's what the MT stands for, million tons. No, my error. When I use MT, it stands for metric tons. Okay, I don't think too many people know that because of the English in their way. If you write ton, T-O-N, it's the English ton. If it's T-O-N-N-E, it's the metric ton. So just, useless information I felt like I give now. So, but that's going to be worth $10 billion. That's just a raw material that's been used for aluminum. But the key point is that the bulk of that growth, what's pushing the silicone market to grow, okay, is demand for chemical grade, 99.5, okay? We've reached a position where new plants will need to be built to meet the demand. One, traditional process to make silicone, okay, have an obstacle, access to process know-how. What does that mean? Well, there's about 4 companies outside of China that are doing silicone. They haven't done any R&D. They're all old fogey technology company. Okay, so nobody has the process knowledge. Basically, it's as if these guys have the book and the knowledge doesn't come along. And also, there's going to be high demand, but all the low-hanging fruit have been picked. And alternative from China can't come, because what people don't realize is, well, in China, there's a few big producers. The bulk of the silicone producer are small producer. So what they're doing in China, they're just going for their own vertical integration all the way to solar, but they can't really deliver all over, the cost of electricity and all those issues. So there is going to be a massive demand for new silicone plant. And that's another incredible advantage HPQ has.
Just to clarify that last point. So China, you're saying them as an alternative is limited. They're maxed out, is what you're trying to say right now?
They're sort of maxed out, or they're going to need to, they keep reorganizing themselves because they're going to try to do it. And also, they're not really the lowest cost producer anymore. They're not going to be the lowest cost producer. It's not easy. Like when they don't have any water, you have to use a lot of coal to get the energy, because making silicone, extracting quartz from silicone requires a lot of energy. And now we're living in the ESG world where your carbon content of your material plays into it. So all these issues are going to play on the long term of the market. All those silicone challenges I talked about are HPQ opportunities. Okay, the market is ripe. Like, it took us, times to go here, and people complaining. We've mentioned many times our pilot plant would start, but the truth of the matter is, thank God our pilot plant's starting now, not 2 years before. Because the market is much more receptive to what we're doing now than it was then. 2 years ago, 3 years ago, 5 years ago, when we started, we were really like ahead of the curve in the sense of our thinking. Okay. Now the curve is starting to wake up to what we thought about 5 years ago. And it's going to be very hard for them to catch up, because we have our own proprietary technology. And as I said, there's so many barriers to entries into doing it. So we're playing with those disruptive technology. Our first really big disruptive technology is the one that's going to come online very soon. It's a QRR. It's an incredible ability. It's a low-cost process to make 4N silicone. And I'll explain the importance of that material as we move forward, but it's really important. So it's a new low CapEx, OpEx, and carbon footprint process to make 4N in one step. We own the patent to it. Anyway, the US, and we have applications all over the world that are, moving forward. By developing this, what HPQ has been able to do is we've internally developed, through our partner PyroGenesis, a very strong silicone process know-how. Also, by being such a forward-thinking silicone, developing silicone technologies, we've gotten basically a good bank of very knowledgeable people in the silicone industries that we have access to discuss advance how we do. So that silicone know-how is with us. Okay. Commercial validation is starting at the end of this quarter. And basically what we're
And what does that mean, Bernard, if you could just expand that a little bit?
Means that we'll be starting to turn on the machine. Okay, so we, I'll explain it more a bit when we show forward, but the machine will be turned on, and then we will start to produce material. Okay, at that moment, we will also get all the raw data. There's a lot of things that are hypothetical, and then we'll get the real raw data. What's that raw data is important for me is to make the financial modeling required to say, okay, this is how we're going to go to commercial scale. So this is why we're saying we're starting commercialization, because, the product we do is going to be relatively easy. We come in, we send the material to be analyzed. It has 4N purity, we're ecstatic. It has 5N purity, we're in heaven. With 6N, we're going to be dancing on tables. But we don't know what's the exact 4N. We feel very comfortable we're going to do. We could do better. We don't know. So this is all these issues going to start answering. It's going to be like, I won't give that much wishy-washy because I'll have the scientific proof. At this moment, we know the system works. We know that the technology works. Okay, we just have to prove it at a bigger scale. We have to scale it up to a level that's close enough to industrial, and the next scaling up is not going to be as big as the scaling up we're doing now. So, does that answer your question?
Yep.
Okay, good. So basically, as I'm saying, 4N really is the key to it. So next slide. Yeah, industrial demands for what we're doing, okay, is massive. Auto demand for that's basically the entire $10 billion industry. Again, we're talking about the 3 million metric ton market is a market we can play in. We think we have competitive advantage, the entire segment of the market. So we can cherry pick to go to the highest value product. So, we could make silicone for aluminum, for basically, strengthening the car. Our technical advantage, we can take much cheaper raw material, not cheaper, basically much more, less pure raw material that nobody else can use. Basically material they use to do ferrosilicium and make, 1N silicone that they use there. Or we can use a bit pure and make 4N for other applications. So we have this great variation. And we know that demand is going to be driven by the 2N. A, for the silicone industry, and the second one for the polysilicon, solar, and electronic industry. Okay. And what we're realizing now is there's actually a demand for 4N silicone that is coming to fruition, that's coming to realization. You'll micro-sized silicone powders for battery application. When you talk to battery application, which is very funny because I've started to talk to a lot of battery guys, and it always comes down to the same one. They always mention we want low-cost silicone, okay? In their mind, they're thinking metallurgic. But then at the same time, they ask, but we want 3N to 4N. And I have to tell them, guys, that doesn't exist. That product doesn't exist. When you get a 3N to 4N silicone that you get, buy through Alibaba, it is junk from the solar industry that's been recycled down. You won't be able to have consistent quality, consistent material. The only other people that can make the 4N consistently are people out of the solar industry if they do use 2-3 step. They're still starting with the entire step and they add additional step. We do it in one step. So there's a micron size powders that some battery manufacturers are looking for right now to combine that with graphite. That's one type of material. And then there's the nano powders for the next generation of silicone battery. So we're going to be in a position to attack these two markets from two different point of views, which all start with the same concept, which is we can make our own silicone better. So we're working on the two other technologies, is really the nano reactor and the fume silicone reactor. Okay, what is our value proposition HPQ? Well, develop and monetize. This is why we have multiple verticalities. This is why the company is designed in multiple verticalities, because we might have somebody that's really interested in this section, but doesn't really care about that part of it. Okay, or we're going to have somebody that's really interested in this section, doesn't really care about the other one. So we are from the beginning structure so that we can divide the company, okay, to make it more valuable, or sell it out if it becomes more valuable. So what we do is we develop the technology. Okay? Our plan is not going to be as much as having said we want to license our technologies, but we want to be involved into monetizing every one of those technologies. We will see how it moves forward. That's why we say the next 3 years is going to be very, very exciting, because during the next 3 years, we'll have the QRR system, okay, working just for that $10 billion market. We have the solar market, which we could go back and take a look at how to do it metallurgically. And if we could do a material that has cost effectiveness, that's something you can look at. We have the nano silicone powders. I could put another third line into it. It's just basically the micro-sized powders of 4N coming into it. So there, it can be like within the QRR project, it can be multiple verticalities. So there's many ways for us to reach commercial, basically, you know, expansion growth. So the key point is we develop technology. Okay, that's we're a non-revenue developed company, but we have a good idea how we're going to monetize these systems, either through us becoming producer or us partnering up with people to become producer, where we still maintain, because we bring in the technology, a significant control over what's going on. We shall see. So the future looks really, really exciting. Okay. As I said, we do have a lot of things in HPQ. So we're developing, as I keep saying this, we're developing game-changing technologies with pyrogenesis. So the first one I mentioned against the QRR, we go from quartz here to silicone. The nano reactor takes our silicone, converts it into nanopowders for batteries. The fume silica starts again with quartz. We use plasma torch, and we basically make those fume silica. And we have other downstream application, which are we're going to be looking at developing silicone and nano materials for high value application outside of what the battery space and those issues are. So there are multiple ways to view using it. Let's go through, why is our technology so game changing? Well, what are we competing? When I said the technology started in 1890, well, fundamentally it's the same thing. Presently, to make silicone, a conventional plant, okay, can make between 98, which is 1N, to 99.5 SI. Okay, so it's 2N. These technologies are scalable by increment of 30,000 metric ton per year, which require a minimum investment around $200 million. That's before the inflation just came into it. So you have a market where demand fluctuates, but your production capacity doesn't fluctuate. So you either start, new reactors, remove them. It's very difficult to adjust the market. This is why there's only a few big players playing into it. And you need, and the other key point, as I said, chemical solution, chemical silicone, chemical grade silicone, 2N plus, is where the growth of the market's coming. Traditional process, okay, about only 40% of their output is of 2N purity. If not, they have difficulties doing that. So what that means is, to meet the demand, my competitors have to take the decision of building a new plant where 60% of the material is going to be the lowest feed material, which sells for less, hoping that on average, 40%. Now, right now at $10,000 a metric ton, hey, everybody's happy, but everybody knows that that's not going to last forever, or it might last, but it may last longer than people want to think about it. They can't take that material. They can't take that 2N material and sell it to batteries. Cannot. That's point bar. It's when battery manufacturers talk about, we want low cost silicone, they're talking 3 to 4N purity. That's what they're looking for. Doesn't exist. Just removing that for these processes, just removing the extra 0.5% percentage of impurity is very difficult, very time consuming, very expensive.
And I think an easy way to kind of conceptualize all this is these processes were created at a time long before anybody ever considered electric vehicle batteries and the kind of purities that were required. So these guys, the traditional process is adequate. I don't want to say great, but it's adequate for traditional uses, but just can't be adopted without a high degree of expense and disruption into new uses, correct?
Yes. And when I started in the silicone business 5 years ago, and you would talk to the old timers from big companies, it was adamant. It says there's no market above 2N. So in their mind, there was no market. You took 2N, and then if you need a higher value market, you turn into polysilicon. That was a completely other market. So there was no market. That market now exists, but their technology can't deliver it. They can do it. They can add extra step, but every step you add costs more money. Second thing is you need 6 tons of very, very pure raw material to make 1 ton of the finished product. All right. So you need 6 tons of ultra pure quartz. You need 6 tons of raw material that's divided into ultra high purity quartz, low ash coal, and wood chips. Now, if George wanted to enter the conventional silicone industries right now, he would have a massive barrier entry. Not only would he need to find the knowledge, basically you end up basically stuck having to sign with a few companies that can build a system, and they'll charge you an arm and a leg for it. And then you have the problem of where you're going to get your 6 ton, your low ash coal. There's only 2 mines in the world that do this, and one of them is controlled by the competitors. That's another massive barrier to entry. So on average, the cost, to make 98% 553 material was above $1,800 a metric ton. And the median was closer between like $1,800, $1,500, maybe all the way to $2,500. That's where the cost range is. Our technology is just the best options for new plant coming forward. All right. Bar everything else we talked about, just for that $10 billion market, our technology is going to be simply the best. It sounds like simply the best. It's just on. Why? Because even though we use a little bit more energy to do it, okay, we need less raw material, and we produce a higher purity finished product in 1 step. So, we're talking about making 4N in 1 step, which is the preferred, which luck will have it like this. That's the preferred purity of battery manufacturers. They like to have 4N. They can tolerate 3N, but they prefer to have 4N. Okay, so we have it like this. We're not scalable by, 30,000 metric ton. We're scalable by size of 2,500 metric ton. What that means is our systems are reactors that we put in parallel, one next to the other. Now, if you're trying to get social acceptability to build a smelter, it's not that easy, as opposed to says reactors in a plant. So if you look at what an HPQ silicone plant would look like from the outside, it looks like any commercial building. That's it, 2-level building, that's it. We do 4-step. We only need 4.5 tons of feedstock to make 1 ton. Okay. And our other key advantage is we don't need a ultra pure. See, the traditional process starts with very pure material to finish with a less pure end product. We start with a lower purity feedstock, and we finish with a higher purity end product. Why is that? The key to our technology is that we're the only smeltering process that can operate continuously under vacuum. So we combine 2 processes that are known to work. We combine them together, and this is how we get such a high quality material. That means because we only need 4.5 tons, we don't need as pure material. Our internal numbers at this moment says it's going to cost us less than $1,400 to make 4N material. Okay,
versus $1,800 to make 2N.
1N.
Oh, 1N versus $1,800 on the traditional process to make 1N.
1N.
So
exactly.
The cost differential is simply massive.
Yeah. That's another way of saying the same thing. And that's 553. 553 is 1N. Okay. That's 98% silicone.
So what's 553? Just
553 is how we call it in the industry. It's 5% aluminum, 5% something else, and 3% 553. So it's what's known as 553, okay, is 98% Si. That's just a generic term given. So if you look over the last year, okay, the real selling price, as I tell you, it fluctuates. Okay. But this is the cost of everybody on average, the aggregate cost, okay, to produce 1N silicone is here. So what we're talking, we're going to be doing 4N.
Yeah,
that's a $10 billion market. Just that market, okay, just that market would be massive. But there's more. But that's literally the insane truth. There is more. the shortage has driven the price completely through the roof. US silicone prices are trending up. Silicone spot price was at $10,000 a metric ton at the end of December. That's completely insane. And that was even before the war started, which you have Russia and Ukraine were both big players in that industry. So you're going to have even more shortage. And as I said in my joke, there's more. There's a new emerging market. All those numbers I gave you, okay, the growth of the market did not take into consideration the future demand for silicone for batteries. Just didn't. So the new emerging market for silicone is going to be energy and battery sector. Preliminary thumbsuck estimations, it's going to be 200,000 metric tons worth about 2.6 billion by 2030, which is almost tomorrow, growing at 50% year over year. That's insane. What's HPQ?
But how many people can address that $2.6 billion market? That's
exactly where it comes out.
It's not as big as 10 billion, but that 2.6 billion is almost the entire
that
pool of
2.6 billion, that 2.6 billion is going to drive up that $10 billion market because there's no other way. So it's like the 10 billion market is actually like lower. It's actually going to be bigger than what it is because this is a new market. So it's difficult to put in the numbers of the overall market. So this is what it looks like. What's our HPQ unique advantage? Our capacity to make capability to produce 3 to 4 N SI in one step. Where that's going to be one of our key. Then it's going to be our own internal capability to transform the silicone produced into the nano silicone material looking for. That's what we say when we said HPQ is strategic silicone solution in action. That's the way we think about it. That's the way we move forward. So this is what people have understanding. Like the fundamentals, the overall business, the macroeconomics of business never look better. And finally, we're talking about a few days now before the plant starts. Okay. So, the plant starting is plant starting, but still, it's pretty cool. If you think about it, it's talk about a perfect timing to be able to showcase that technology. Okay. Because before I was showcasing basically a business plan, what we're going to be doing. Now I'm showcasing a technology with real application, real end results, real material.
By the way, before you flip onto the next screen, if you just go back.
Yeah, wait. There we go.
There. Looking at the index pricing, the graph there, the US spot price there is ballpark $10,000, but the EU spot price is looking about 5,500. Is there a reason for such a big divergence between and how does that impact HPQ, or are you just going after the US market so you're not as concerned with the EU spot price? But how do you have that big of a divergence?
Even if it's 5,000 euros is about what? It's going to be like $6,000-7,000 US. It still cost me $1,400 to make. So it's like, and that's one end. That's probably one end material price. So it's just a question of where the feed demand coming in. Maybe they got more product from China at that moment. And what also happens is a lot of those are spot prices. So spot prices will vary, okay, for shortages and everything else.
Sure.
But 90% of the industry is done on contract basis. So I was just listening to the conference call of Spherical, and it says, "Oh, we're now coming around and renegotiating our contract, and we're going to try to make our contract as short as possible." So because they see the trend staying high for a long time, that's really a question of contract prices coming in and out, who's on and off, how they play around. The key point that's important to realize is that we've now reached a price point which more than supports, technologies like ours. Well, we actually design our technology to make money at the price point, and we're cheaper. So we're in a good position. So I think it's going to fluctuate up and down. I don't put it as a hard core number, but those numbers didn't even take into consideration what happened in Ukraine and in Russia, because with the sanction, there's so almost material. So,
by the way, here, just a quick sidestep. Here we are in the middle of, 2/3 of the way through March. How have prices held up for spot silicon? Are they still in this range?
There's no market. The problem with silicone is it's a tight market. So there's no really price market. You see it, but you see from China and everything else. It seems to be holding up. The importance for me is to go listen to my competitors, presentation and get a good idea where the price is going. Eventually, we'll start paying. It's like you have to pay a lot of money to get those pricing. At that moment, it's not that important for us for the long term of it. The key point for us is there's a spot market where we can, sell our material. Well, that's going to be once we have a full commercial plant. But I think once we take a clear decision to have a commercial plant, at least for the beginning of our production, we'll have pretty much our ideas where we're going to sell them and how to go after high value niches. But that reality completely changes everything that you ever thought or heard about silicone for battery anodes completely, because that material price going through the roof is the feedstock for everybody else doing the same thing. So, and because the price was so low for so long, a lot of people made the wrong assumption, long-term assumption. They would think it would always stay cheap forever.
A lot of business plans got destroyed.
A
lot of business plans, a lot of spreadsheets out there that are deep in the red once they make the adjustment for that.
Yeah, everybody's scratching their head and everything is moving. I was just talking to a battery manufacturer telling me like the price of graphite has gone through the roof. So the price of graphite going through the roof means that there's even more room for our nano silicone and our micro silicone product, because we're always going to be judged in a parity to what graphite is. So that's the interesting part. So the key point is for the energy transition we want to do, we need to have batteries that are much more efficient, not last longer. You want batteries where you can plug it in, do 500 kilometers, come back and just plug it back in. You want that capacity into it. And it has to be cheap. Tesla has just had to increase the price of their cars because the price of their material coming into it. So there's going to be even more demand for silicone material coming into it, especially from what we're doing. So why is silicone so important? Basically for two reasons. It allows you to charge faster and it holds more juice into it. Fundamentally, you can't have fast charging batteries without silicone into it. Key point. So what HPQ is really doing is to produce at large scale, and that's what people have to understand. Okay, I'm not trying to be the first in the market. I am trying to be a large scale suppliers of a material that is going to be consistent. And that's the key part. Plus, our key point, and it's been that philosophy since the beginning, we want to have price parity to graphite. Okay, so if graphite sells for 10, we might sell ours for 20 because you get 3 times better. That makes sense. Might sell it to 30, depending on how that plays around. But we have to be able to make money sufficiently, get a decent return on investment, and everything else. And we do internal numbers that, we keep playing around. We do those type of spreadsheets and we're always very, very comfortable. They've actually become much better in the last year. So what's our technology? Well, what we're developing is what the battery material needs. We know our technology. We take our battery grade silicone, which is what we produce. We put it in our reactor and we produce spherical silicone nanowires and nanopowders and nanowires. Okay. But the key point is we know over time, as we keep improving the technology, okay, we'll be able to make scalable nanopowders material in the sub 100 nanometers. That's not, we thought that'd be the hardest part, but that's for us is very easy to do, all the way to 5 micron micrometers. Okay. And why is that important? Well, that's just a sweet spot range that everybody's looking to do. The problem is if you're trying to do with traditional process, the micron size, you end up, adding contamination in the material. So you need a pure product to make it in. And the nano size, there's only one process that's known to work right now, but it's never going to be economically feasible. Like I have some of my scientists, an expert working for me, and they're doing a review of all the technology out there. And it's very, very clear that the bulk of the technology right now being done to do nano materials of silicone are not going to be and never going to be commercially scalable. Just never going to be. And this is the reason why. This is literally the reason why. Right now, the bulk to make nano silicone, okay, they all use silane gas. What the heck is silane gas? Well, silane gas is a byproduct, or it's a material you do when you do solar grade silicone metal. Now, it's used actually by some companies to do actually solar grade silicone metal through a process called fluidized bed reactor, but it's still a very, still a very expensive product to do. And just this visualize what I'm talking about. So You have to use traditional process to make metallurgy grade silicon metal. Has to be basically dissolved in acid, good for the environment. Then you get a product called silicon tetrachloride. You have to add hydrogen into it. So you make trichlorosilane, which you then have to refine 3 times to get silane gas. Okay. So, the worldwide capacity to make silane gas to make nanopowders is what? Maybe 10,000, 20,000 metric tons. If you need to build another plant to build another 10,000 metric tons, it's $1 billion more investment. Just from this point here to there. Okay. Don't believe me? Techno. Okay. Their process to make nano silicon material. Yes, they do make nano silicon material, but they use silane gas. They're using what's called thermal plasma to do it. It's a different way of doing it, but they're starting feedstock material as silane gas. The other process is CVD, group 14, Amprius, all those particular. So they start with silane gas. This is what we're offering to the industry. Bloody darn simple, eh? Our capacity to make 4N, we convert it into nanopowders, it'll come into it. So our philosophy is from the beginning designed to meet the goal of making cost parity, right? And what's really interesting is, well, we're located in Quebec, which is an emerging key hub for the battery supply chain. So much so that Investissement Quebec in their presentation where they're selling Quebec to there, they talked about us. But look at the other silicon material, Ferroglow, Alken, yeah, they're into it. They produce metallurgic. If they want to do solar material, if they want to do battery material, they got to do extra purification. Techno, which I just mentioned, uses silane gas. HPQ is the only one that we've foreseen that has a technology that's developed to make low cost, price parity with graphite. Okay. So this is what we're doing moving forward. So this is what's so exciting. And what makes us, strongly believe we can do this because we can make our own feedstock. We're not price dependent to the market. So that gives us much more flexibility to develop our technology, be patient, and move forward. So key takeaway for this, right locations in Quebec, government support, we already have EQ as an investor. Now we talk about fume silica. It's another one of those crazy technology we're moving forward. It's another one of those big products. So what, about $3 billion a year market? It's not a bad little market. The problem is, so basically, it's one of those sandwich products that's used everywhere else. But its manufacturing process has so many Achilles heel, it's not going to, it's sort of like limiting its growth in this application. So in 2021, HPQ signed an agreement with Pyrogenesis, basically covering the development of brand new fume silica reactor technology. But that project is already at the pilot plant phase. So we're building that pilot plant. So it's a more advanced project. What's really exciting, what's really cool about it is that, we have an agreement for a $2 million stated cost to build a pilot plant. The federal government's covering 33% of the cost. The Quebec government's covering 30%. We're covering 29%, and Pyro's covering 8% acting as the operator. So it's another one of those technology and another verticalities that could be a standalone. Just when we started to talk about this, some of the big players in the industry started to approach us. Why? Well, once again, traditional fume silica process, the same thing, same raw material, silicon metal, okay? Same process, you dissolve in nitrogen, you recreate the same silicon tetrachloride, you add H2 and oxygen, you burn it, and you have the fume silica. But you produce one of the most nastiest guys, hydrogen chloride gas. Very bad for the environment. Our new process, directly from quartz. Quartz or fume silica reactor, fume silica. Plasma-based process allows a direct quartz to fume silica transformation, okay? We eliminate hydrochlorine gas release. We cut down the energy, 86% the energy requirement to doing it. So that's going to give us a great concept. Plus our feedstock is going to be quartz. So, our plants is going to be not that expensive. We have CapEx, OpEx. This is another one of those. This could be a great standalone company by itself. On the TSX venture, a standalone company selling this, probably going to have the same market cap as HPQ has right now. And we're looking at other complementary hydrogen venture. Swiss-based EBH2, we're going to be working into it. There's some unfortunate event related to Ukraine that sort of slowed down the validation process. But we think everything is going to be lined up. We'll be able to do it relatively quickly, but sometimes you don't control. And I hope in the coming 2 quarters, I'll be able to talk more about our hydrolysis nanosilicone ideas. So that's still in the pipeline, in the discussion, in the thinking. So that's another area, additional area we're working on. This for me is the most exciting slide, because we're an R&D company, we're a non-revenue company, okay? So it's very difficult to get very precise indication what we're doing. But I finally found a way to present where all we are, all what we're doing. So just take a look at QRR. We're finishing the commission. So once we started, we'll have it in the contract we signed with Pyro, okay, we gave ourselves 12 months to finish the validation of all the costs. We don't think it's going to take 12 months, but we gave ourselves 12 months leeway. So we're going to have this. So that's going to be very exciting. But as soon as we start producing 4N material, okay, then we're going to go and we're going to try to produce either, and I'm already looking at finding tolling companies that can take our material, grill it, mill it down to the size required by battery manufacturers, and send it to battery manufacturers for them to use that silicone as a combining agent with graphite. So that's already a pretty big market. So that could be an interesting way for us to doing this. And as soon as we have all the numbers there, we're ready to go to build the first commercial size. So we will have those 2 markets. So we're going to, at the same time, we're also going to make the raw material for the silicon nitride company. So you see, there is a vision toward commercialization, but I think the value generation HPQ is going to be could be here. As I said, that's $10 billion standalone market. The nano reactor. Well, we're finishing the Gen 1, okay? People have to understand, the reason why we call them Gen 1, Gen 2, Gen 3, it's not because I like the concept. It gives you an idea where we are on the technology readiness level, okay? Gen 1 is the beginning part. So during those phases when we test everything to work, we get that working. We should be finishing that part of the work very, very soon. When that happens, we're going to start building the Gen 2 using everything that we've learned with the Gen 1. If we didn't do the Gen 1, okay, and that's sort of an interesting debate internally, like I'm going to share you something, George, is that at the original idea, we were thinking of going directly to building the Gen 2, the second standalone machine. And we decided no, take an extra step, which has been very good because we've discovered a lot of the issues that we would have learned with a bigger machine. So now we'll have the Gen 2, we'll be able to do it. And our thinking is, once we sort of finish tweaking with the Gen 1 to start building Gen 2, we will then finally use the Gen 1 to start producing samples to send it, because battery manufacturers don't need a lot of material to start off with as we get ready for the second mission. So this is what I'm trying to show, is that there's going to be a lot of movement. It's not because we're going to be building the Gen 2, there's going to be a phase where nothing's happening. We're still going to be using the Gen 1 to do more material, more testing, more development. So that's what I find very interesting. Fume silica, well, we're building the plant right now. We're engineering, we're getting ready. Next year, we're restarting the same process here. And I already got people asking me for fume silica to be sent to end buyers. So this is already where we are. EBH2 technologies should be validated and developed, and all those things we're working on. So when we say develop and monetize, this is all the things that we're doing at the same time. Okay, we're not your grandma's company here. We have a lot of things moving forward at the same time. So, progress summary. I know it's been long, boring, George. I see you fall asleep.
Nope, not at all. I'm just trying to stay out of your way. I don't want anybody online complain that I'm interrupting you.
Not that we listen to them, but still. Progress summary. We started this in 2015, okay? And since then, we've been implemented in HPQ, innovation-driven technology development strategy. That's what we are. We are in one of those innovation technology companies. But what we've done is we've gone from in 2015, where it's basically, you know, pie in the sky business plan, sort of, it would make sense to do this, to where we are in 2022. We're going to have at least one pilot plant operational, a second one being built, a proof of commercial scalability pilot plant being built too. That's pretty much advanced, plus other projects that we have, because we sort of have a certain scale. So with Pyrogenesis, we're providing silicone materials for industry, batteries, and more. Cost effective. I'm not going to re-explain everything, but what's also interesting is we're the only listed vertically integrated SI material provider in Canada and the US. There is Ferroglobe, there is Alchem, but there's either massive companies, okay, us, and there's a ton of people with either quartz deposit or silicone ideas for batteries. Quartz deposits, sorry to say, they're not in the silicone business. They're just in the quartz mining business. Silicone anode companies, they buy their silicone. They'll be clients of mine. Developing green fume silica, and we're really working with ABH2. If that technology works, we'll have a green hydrogen solution also coming. So what are the upcoming catalysts? Well, we got the start of the pilot plant, production of 3 to 4 NSI, and then production of micron-sized silicone powders for our silicone nitrates for batteries. And that's going to be very exciting, because that's a different niche of market is what we're looking for the nano silicone. On the nano silicone, well, engineering construction of the Gen 2 and production of nano silicone, and ABH2, the second validation. So if you take a look at it, there are a lot of interesting catalysts coming online between now and the end of 2022. So that's the capital structure. Key point is what? Well, we have key points. We have cash and cash equivalent, $8.5 million in the bank account. Okay, so that gives us the money of our ambition. That's the key point. Yeah, the other key point is, you know, we have EQ at 8.4, power 8.7, management board 6.3, strategic investor at 10. No, we've put our money where our mouth is. There we go. So, any question, comment?
Look, this is almost like a dry run for the. This is a dry run for the big.
Oh, I'm gonna have to figure a way to cut it down on time. I'm gonna have to cut it down on time. How much time?
No, but look, I think the most important thing that comes out of this, Bernard, the most important thing that comes out of this is you guys have delivered everything you said you'd deliver up until now. You still have more to deliver, but everything has moved along and progressed, and not on a perfect timeline, but I don't care who you are. There's no research development company. There's no R&D company. Even Apple and Samsung have product delays, and they're full commercialized companies. So I think the most important thing that comes out of this is everything has moved along at a really good pace, at a very exciting, and now it's almost like you're knocking on 2 or 3 doors now, or you're getting ready to knock on 2 or 3 doors imminently, you know, the next few months, next 24 months. And that's what comes across. And that's great.
Yeah. And it's not the Excel spreadsheet of what the value is going to be from the sale that plays into it. It's what's going to be the value of that technology. Okay. And I think the value of the technology is going to be tremendous. And the fact that we got a patent from the US government on the technology is a clear demonstration that we know where we're going forward.
Well, do you see a scenario, Bernard? And we're not, you know, I'm not asking you to project or make any predictions, but do you see a scenario where you're right? Because up until now, when shareholders think about the company, think about in terms of how many potential clients or what potential revenues come from capital, from capturing a certain percentage of the market. Naturally, that's the way you look at things. But given where the multiple technologies are right now, do you see the potential where you just might have a much bigger company in the industry, either an end user or a traditional out-of-date producer who says, we got to get our hands on that technology, we got to go make a big offer for not the whole company, but either the whole company or parts of the company? Do you see that as, because you just said that a minute ago, it's the value of the technology necessarily, not the value of the revenues coming in, but I think you got both.
Yeah, no, I'm gonna say this in the coming year, okay, the value of technology, and then it's going to be the value of the revenue stream that can come out of deploying those technologies. Yes, those could be scenarios. I would be very cautious about a legacy company being interested in our technology. I think they would be more interested in buying it just to put it to sleep, because it's sort of it's going to become sort of like a critical, almost like, metaphysical event for them. As with regard to a bigger player in the battery space and those material or those areas and application, yes. As for your third scenario, I can definitely see that happening for the fume silica. In the sense that, from the few conversation I've had with some of the big players into this, if our technology works as well as we think, that might be the one that moves the fastest. Because the silicone business is so big, and there's so many different applications. It's not the same thing. Fume silica. Sure. The fun part is the industry we're in. There's only a few big players. So there's no really small, nimble companies that are designed to go after niche market. In the silicone business, there's so many great niche applications we can go after.
Yeah, you're the small, nimble innovator that big companies like to look for. Now, we're not saying anything. I don't think I'm just saying that as a general principle. I'm definitely not trying to say that. I don't think you are either. But look, we've always seen that in technology. The smaller, nimble innovators get a lot of attention from the big behemoth incumbents. So bottom line, a lot of great possibilities for HPQ, and we're now entering that exciting phase now that said the next few months, between now and the next 24 months, potentially a lot of things might be happening. But that's all I want to say, because I didn't want to interrupt you because you're making this presentation. Any last words that you want to, even though you cover the entire company, any last words that you want to say to the shareholders?
I think the company has never been in such a good position. It's sort of like silly that the markets for innovative technology companies like us has been getting, poo-pooed on for the last 12 to 16 months, but it's not just HPQ. And that's what I think is really the key point to understand. Like I've done, for the fun of it, I've done because, the goalpost which you judge yourself to is the ARC Innovation Fund. So if you take a look at the share return of HPQ versus ARC Innovation Fund in a percentage, not in the dollar value, percentage-wise, we followed their trend. We actually, like on a 2-year basis, I think we've done better than they did in percentage-wise. And the last year, we've done as bad as they've done. So when I see that the leading fund that is basically packaging all non-revenue technology companies with game-changing concept is having as hard a struggle time as we are, then it's not related to you. It's related to risk on, risk off, those issues. So as a company management, you stop listening to the noise and you focus on what you have to do. What is it I have to do? Well, get the QRR working, get the nano reactor working, get the fume silica working, get the hydrogen working, and the other project I'm working on. It doesn't sound as sexy, but it's what's going to pay us the bread and butter.
Execution
and with the QRR working, and now with the COVID restriction removed, it's going to be much more interesting to bring investors and come, big institutional investors come. Let's come and visit the plant. And now, we are part of the Quebec story, the Canada story about everything. And as our material gets to be more known, it'll be more and more present.
Thanks for making the presentation, Bernard. I mean, and again, I love this deck. And for everybody that's watching this at home, especially all the current shareholders and the long, loyal shareholders, you can review it on your own. You can either review the deck by watching this video, or you can review it on your own just by going to the HPQ website, popping it open there, and kind of taking your time to go through it. But I love this deck. It's the best deck that you've had so far.
Thank you. Just one quick thing. This last week, I know we sent a mailing that we had a new deck. Well, the version we used has one change into it, one extra slide into it. It's updated on our website. So if you want to have the one we use here, it's like the one there's one image into, is because I did not know until a loyal shareholder sent me the link to the EQ presentation. So I thought it'd be good to add that into it. And it closed well the battery section.
But the most updated version of the presentation is sitting
It's
on
on
the
the deck.
HPQ website, which is this version, by the way.
Yeah, this version. Yeah, the one we
Yeah,
use.
and I think everyone should know that over time, the
Yeah.
deck is probably going to go through some minor changes because you're constantly going to be updating it now.
Yeah.
I would be surprised if you weren't updating this deck every 30 to 45 days with new
Well,
developments.
I think that the next big update is going to be at the AGM where we get the change of business approval. That's another thing that's advancing well. It's just tedious, bureaucratic, but there's a lot of tedious bureaucratic things that we're doing right now, which c'est la vie.
Part of the business. Thanks, Bernard. Appreciate it, and good luck when you make the presentations to the institutions and the roadshows.
Thank you.
Hey guys, this video is over, but don't forget to help your company by liking it and even leaving a comment below. And then don't forget to help yourself by subscribing to our channel and never missing another great Agoracom small cap video.